Hello, my name is Professor Alfonso Severos, and this is the Peripheral View. The Peripheral View is my weekly video series addressing those issues on the peripheral edge of the news. We have been defined as living in the age of information. Now, I would like you to substitute the word information for data. Use the word data instead of information. So we are living in the age of data. And most of the time people think of data in terms of computer and machines. However, humans are designed to process data, information. Information we see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. All right? And that information we process, we have the ability to hold some of it in memory. And what we hold in memory, we use in thinking. You can define learning as a process in which information is put in and held in memory, and you're able to recall. That being said, that we are in the age of information, we are in the age of data. Today, many conservative Republicans who happen to be white are pushing misinformation, pushing us towards the age of misinformation by corrupting the data that people are exposed, attempting to influence what we take in, what we use to think about, which in turns will impact our attitudes, our beliefs, our perceptions, and our behavior. Two areas this is being done that affects black people: 1619 Project and the critical race theory. And I think on some levels it's a very conscious activity. And I think some of the reasons for this maneuver is that Black Lives Matter, the movement, scared the hell out of white conservatives. Scared the hell. For one, it was not only national, it was international. For two, not like the civil rights movement or the Black Power movement that was predominantly black. This was black, white, Asian, Latino, that cross nationalities. And this being so, there is a need to control the agenda so that they can prevent this from growing, prevent this from occurring by beginning to shape the information that people have. And also an attempt to gain political power. Now, critical race theory. Let's talk about critical race theory because that's in the news quite a bit. And unfortunately, what we hear in the news, both social media and traditional news, is misinformation about critical race theory. The first thing you want to know about critical race theory is that it is not a new theory. It was developed in the 1970s by black legal scholars to look at how institutional racism in the past affects policies, how institutional racism leads into racism today, and that to understand racism today, you have to look at its historical context, how it developed in the past. An example is if you're looking at the inequality in income and wealth between whites and blacks, you need to look at redlining. And redlining was a process in which they labeled communities, white or black, and they treated these communities differently in terms of home buying mortgage loans. Not just banks, the federal government. So if you live in a white community, you were much more likelihood, if you could have the same income, to get a home mortgage loan, buy a home, to have the foundation for wealth development that you can pass on. If you lived in the black community that was labeled, you're less likely to be able to buy a home and have that foundation for the development of wealth that you can obtain and pass on. Consequently, as time goes on, one community is able to develop equity and wealth, the other community is not, and you would see difference in economics between the two communities, and the difference is this redlining that fundamentally was a racist policy. A racist policy. And critical race theory, that's a perfect example of critical race theory, because it talks about how policies and structures and procedures in the past affects and impact current society. Critical race theory is not about individuals, it's about structure and systems. And it does imply that American systems, to some extent, and to a very large extent, in terms of race, has been racist. And there's no doubt about that. So that's critical race theory in a nutshell. This idea that you have to look at structures and policies and how they develop over time and how it impacts the present to get a true picture of present situations. I think it's important that we understand that. Senator Ted Cruz said critical race theory is as racist as the KKK. I've heard other statements on the news saying critical race theory is about teaching white kids to hate themselves. Now that's total misinformation. Now there's a good portion of this population who will hear that, internalize that, and use that in their thinking and shapes their belief about critical race theory. Misinformation. So we are in the age of misinformation, and we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we get our correct information, especially to the Black, Latino, and minority communities. So when we talk about critical race theory, we're talking about systems. We're talking about the structure of systems, historical systems, and how it shaped and impact current policies. I hope you found this useful, and it's important that we understand that. 21 states have laws against teaching critical race theory in the schools. Not only against teaching critical race theory, against teaching the 1619 Project. Controlling the data. Controlling the information that we take in our brain, we process and hold in memory, and that shapes our thinking, attitudes, and behavior. Understand what's going on. And 6 to 7 states, I don't know the exact number, have passed laws banning critical race theory. Now, for many whites, the idea that there has been systematic racism in this country is a very threatening idea, because they hold these misinformation about America and democracy. America is a country that developed on the genocide of the indigenous people and on the backs of enslaved people. We don't teach that. We have these other pie-in-the-sky notions of democracy, freedom, and high ideals. Critical race theory says, hey, look at the dynamics, the systems. look at the past to understand its impact on the present. I hope you found this video useful and gave you a better understanding of critical race theory. Thanks for watching.